Hello everyone, and welcome to the fourth app submission tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to be covering quite a few things. We're going to be going over production provisioning profiles, or distribution provisioning profiles as they used to be known as, and we're also going to be going over code signing as well as app sandboxing. So lots to cover, and I'm going to kind of recap, make sure you've understood everything at this point. So make sure that if you go under your window organizer here in Xcode, you have under provisioning profiles, you should have your Mac team provisioning profile already set up, and that should be under your Mac right here as well. And your Mac should also have been registered when all this happened, but we'll check that out in just a bit. So anyway, going over to our developer certificate utility here, I also want to clarify a little bit about app IDs. If you're not creating an app that doesn't need either push notifications or Game Center, then you can pretty much go ahead and just use the wildcard app ID. And this is actually recommended if you really don't have to use these, because every time you create an app ID, it kind of can be a little more pain in the butt if you got a lot of them, and then you don't really need to use half the features anyway. So, and you'll also see kind of why you don't want to create multiple of these app IDs if you don't need to in just a bit. But anyway, the wildcard app ID is fine for just most things that you work with. Now, if you're going to, I just want to make sure that we all have our systems set up here as well. So make sure your system's already set up. Like I said, that should have happened when we did the registration the first time in Xcode. If it doesn't, you can hit the register system right here and then go through this process. An easier way though is to go right into your organizer and just hit add to portal right here, and that should add your computer if it's not already displayed. The last part is that the provisioning profile should have been added as well to, when we did the refresh button as well in the organizer. Now we also have to go and create another provisioning profile, which will be our production or distribution provisioning profile, which allows us to submit our applications to the App Store. So the development one is obviously used for development, and then when you go to actually send it off to the App Store, you can basically have to use code signing, but you have to use your production profile to get this to work. So anyway, yeah, you can go to create profile right here, and we're going to go ahead and create a production provisioning profile. So just hit production provisioning profile. This also used to be known as a distribution provisioning profile. You can call this whatever you want. I suggest you make it something that you'll understand. So production, or yeah, Mac production profile sounds good. Now, if you're going to make a profile for, if you're using a specific app ID, not the wildcard one that's already set up, the wildcard you can use basically for anything, like I said, that doesn't use the push notifications or Game Center. But if you need to use one of those services, you have to use a specific app ID. So for our case, let's say that we had to use these services. We're going to have to create a production profile for this separate application. So we created our Spiral Fun app ID in the last tutorial, and that's that option there. If you're going to use a wildcard though, which you can use basically with most applications you're probably going to use, then I suggest you just create the provisioning profile for the wildcard. Anyway, we're going to select our Spiral Fun one here though, and we're going to hit our Mac app certificate, and we should be good to go. So make sure everything looks good and just hit generate. And you'll see that now this is processing the request, and eventually it'll be done, and now you can see you can download this provisioning profile. So you can hit download there, it'll download right into here. Now it's gonna interrupt you and say that you're gonna want to install it into system preferences, but this does not work if you're doing it because it doesn't actually install it into your Mac. So if you try and hit install and you enter your password and all that good stuff, it's not actually going to work because, well, it just doesn't. So what you have to do instead of going here is drag this provisioning profile over to our provisioning profiles right here, and you just drop it in. And as you can see, you just dropped the Mac production profile, which we just created on the certificate utility there, and now it's registered in your organizer. And this is all you need to do to add it to Xcode. So again, don't add it. You don't add it to the system preferences option. You just don't need to do that, and you can't. So it doesn't really matter. All right, so now if you go back to your provisioning profiles, you should see that you have two, one of production and one of development. So anyway, that is that. So if we flip over to our Xcode project here though, and we want to now code sign our application. So to get it ready for the Mac App Store, let's do a few things here first. So our app has to have some kind of category that it's going to go into. This example, I could maybe call it educational, and you could just throw it under whatever category you want. Now you can see when you change that, it already knows that you have to code sign your application because it's going to the Mac App Store, so it automatically checks on code sign application. Now we'll go ahead into our build settings here, and this is where we're going to make sure that we're code signing with the right information. So you can see that all this information is basically the default, and you could change this to standard 3264-bit Intel, but since I believe Mountain Lion and later are not going to be using that anyway, or can't, then I don't think it really matters. So for the most part, if you're supporting Lion or above, just use 64-bit Intel, and that should be good. Alright, so now though, to actually code signing our applications, we're going to want to just type in code sign, and you'll see that you get this code signing identity section right here. And what you're going to want to do is just select this and go to your Mac production profile, your Mac production profile, and you can see it says com.lucas.spiralfun, and this is the production one. So we just select that, and that's the one that we are going to use. Now, if you were just distributing this to, not using the Mac App Store, or you're just gonna, submit it using your developer ID, which means you can, just install it on other computers, you can just use your Mac developer certificate, or your certificate, I guess. And basically using that would just be fine for installing it on other machines. But if you're going to submit this example to the App Store, then you're going to want to use your production profile. Alright, so now that we're done with that, we can head back to our summary, and we're going to enable app sandboxing. So to do this, all we have to do is hit enable entitlements, and you'll see that now you get this little entitlements file over here, and you can drag this to supporting files if you want, doesn't really matter. But the important part here is that it says now you have enabled app sandboxing. Now I'm not going to go through how iCloud works and how all the other options work. Well, that's certainly for another tutorial, but enabling app sandboxing so that at least you can submit the application with no special features, then that's all we really needed to do for that. Now, to verify that your application does or indeed is sandboxed, you can go ahead and run it, and you'll see that code sign is going to want to sign your application, so you would usually hit always allow, but I'll just hit allow in this case. And we'll say that this is the little application here. If you want to see that it's actually code signed, or not code signed, in sandbox mode, you can go to your activity monitor, and if you look for your little application, if you add the sandbox tool or whatever bar option along the top, if you just right click it, and you can check sandbox right there, and you'll see that sandbox under our application says yes. So that's basically a way of saying that your application is sandboxed. So anyway, you're good on that respect, and you've basically done all the necessary steps to get your application ready to submit. All that's really left is to archive the file and then test to make sure that it installs correctly. But anyway, at this point, we have basically everything we need to actually submit our application. If you're wondering how to do the app icon, there's a tutorial in the Cocoa series for doing this. If you haven't checked that out, I think it's the 10th tutorial or somewhere around there. But anyway, that's how you can add your app icon if you're curious for that. Anyway, that's all the stuff I had to cover in this tutorial. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below. And please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in an upcoming tutorial.